Welcome to The Simple Sophisticate, where in 2014, this podcast premiered. And now in its 11th season, the show continues to focus on the same principles it was founded upon: the art of living a life of quality over quantity. Topics range from creating an everyday life you love living, strengthening mindfulness practices, building a capsule wardrobe, preparing seasonally delicious meals, traveling and exploring France and Britain, and living life to the fullest without breaking the bank, because living well really is quite simple. I'm your host, Shannon Ables, and whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, en route, or returning from that dream destination, or sitting down with a hot cuppa or a cafe au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to episode 397 of The Simple Sophisticate. And today what we're going to be talking about is inspired a bit by what February always brings with it. I'm talking about Valentine's Day, of course, but also this has been an idea that's kind of just kept crossing my path with various things that I've been reading and quotes I've been seeing from people in our current culture that I respect, or at least I consider them to be doing well in their life. And so when they say something, I take note, and they just kept happening. And I was like, you know what? We're going to explore this, and we're going to explore this around Valentine's Day. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about where we find love and loving relationships, and to make sure we're not limiting our perspective, and thus the quality of a life that could be absolutely amazing if we would stop accepting limitations that have been projected by the culture. So the title of today's episode is The Serenity of Savoring Being Single and the Abundance of Love That is Present. But I want to encourage you, even if you, by society's definitions, are partnered in any way, shape, or form, this is not just for people who, by society's definition, are single. This is for everyone. Because to live a full, healthy, loved, and loving life is to become conscious of how we can get in the way of seeing where love really is. And it's inspired by two quotes that I alluded to just a second ago, and I'll share with you those quotes of women at various points in different stages of their life. And I'll also be sourcing various quotes from different experts and philosophers when it comes to this concept of true love. But before I get to that, this episode's Petite Plaisir is a book that I've been wanting to pick up and read for a while, and I finally did it. It was released this past summer, and it's a great book to discover or rediscover where to find joy, inspiration during all sorts of life's tribulations, confusing times, personal or beyond. And I read through it in about 2-3 days. I couldn't put it down. I found it to be well written and applicable to not only someone who is a writer or in the creative world, but for anyone to really step out of, again, those limitations that we might accept when it comes to living a fulfilling life that speaks to us. I'll talk about what that book is and share a few quotes at the end of today's episode. All right, so let's dive into the serenity of savoring being single, where that phrase actually came from. I'll share with you that, and the abundance of love that is present in so doing. So let's start off with one of those quotes. This is from Lucy Liu. She was interviewed for a weekly column called My Monday Morning, and they asked her about being single. She said, quote, "I guess I don't even think about being single. I just lived my life and made choices along the way. I didn't say, this is what it's going to be in 20 years or 10 years or 5 years. Unexpected things will happen and change the course of your life. That's when you make a decision for yourself and not feel like you futurized too much and disappointed yourself. I never really zoom out enough to think, oh, I did things differently. It's only when somebody tells you that you did things differently. And then I realize, oh, I guess I did," end quote. So hold that quote in your mind for a while and we'll touch on it throughout. And then I'll share the second one in a second. So, in the title of today's episode, it is called The Serenity of Savoring Being Single. So, being single. I want to focus on this word being. All right. The state of being is an active state, a state of wholly being in the present moment, but by no means stuck or bound, and most definitely not forced upon us. Being is something we choose, whether that is to be calm, be kind, be engaged, be honest, be loving. We choose how we reside in the everydays of our life. Now, I want to talk a moment about award-winning actor Isabella Rossellini, who is aged 72. She recently shared how she unexpectedly found, quote, her words, the serenity of being single, and has been savoring it for decades. Yet again, the words chosen by a culture, single, to describe a state of existence reveal more about the culture's values than the actual properties of that state, by which I mean single does not reflect the truth of one's life connections and company. If you have peeked at all at Isabella Rossellini's popular Instagram account, and I encourage you to do so. She's an animal lover. She is a lover of life. She has a wonderful sense of humor. You know that her life and interests abound with company of all types, people, animals, plants, etc. And as she reminds in the full quote that I'm going to share in a second, she isn't alone being unpartnered. That is a misconception that gets perpetuated to draw a division that need not exist. So here's what she said when asked the question about being unpartnered for 25 years. Quote, "I think that's just how life panned out. I had children and it was difficult to have a relationship with a man who was not the father. And I started thinking, okay, I'll take care of the children. And then when they're grown up, I'll be available for a partner. But then I found, I have to say, the great serenity of being single." She paused as if to savor the words. Back into her quote. "And if I hadn't, I don't think I would have been able to do all that I've done. I have freedom of movement. Maybe if I'd found somebody and fallen in love, but I didn't look for a partner just to not be alone, because I wasn't alone. When you're with somebody, you become very vulnerable to the ups and downs of the other person. So I was able to keep an evenness and a concentration that allowed me to study, to get a master's degree in my 50s. I could just zero in on what I wanted to do when I was 14. End quote. Now, this was an interview she gave to The Guardian recently. And I really just appreciated how she, number one, first said, I wasn't alone. I'm not alone. But that term single tries to make it seem, by its definition, that one is. And then that she found a serenity in being single and that she is savoring it. With Valentine's Day right around the corner, an annual holiday to celebrate love, as we know, those we love in all its different relationship forms, it can be helpful to be reminded that love doesn't have a hierarchy. One type of relationship, be it a friendship, a spouse, a parent and child relationship, a pet companion, a universal love for humanity, self-love, none of those is more or less important, but merely different avenues of giving and receiving love. Love, when it is true, comes in a variety of forms. And in a post I wrote back in October, and I'll link to it in the show notes, that focuses on unconditional love, I shared a quote from Andy Puddicombe, the meditations instructor, and he shared, quote, "The very definition of unconditional love is that it is not dependent on anything or anyone. So to experience unconditional love, we don't necessarily need to be with another person. It doesn't mean we can't enjoy being with another person, but we don't necessarily need them to experience unconditional love," end quote. Let's dive deeper into this. Zen Buddhist monk and peace activist Thich Nhat Hanh wrote in his book, How to Love, quote, "In true love, you attain freedom," end quote. He goes on to teach us that, quote, "To love is to recognize, to be loved is to be recognized by the other." In other words, they see who you are truly. They're not trying to change you. They're not trying to control you. They're not trying to limit you, and vice versa. And thus the freedom. True love is where freedom is felt, not confinement, not limitation. You will be able to become even more fully your true self with people or a entity or a companion or in a culture. We're talking about love for humanity when you are truly loved. And again, I want to really emphasize here, this is not just about having one person that approves of you. This is not about approval at all, number one. And number two, it's not about someone saying you're enough. It's about you knowing you're enough. And it's about finding people that don't want to stand in the way of you being truly who you are. Doesn't mean you're not going to grow and make mistakes. It doesn't mean you're perfect. No, 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 no. We're not saying that. We're human after all, right? But there's a freedom there. And to go back to Andy Puddicombe's words, it's unconditional. Thus, there are no parameters. Okay. So in my own life, one that the zeitgeist would label as being single, I have let go of the narrow perspective of how to welcome love into my life as well as give love to the world. Once I began to do this with more awareness and understanding, I began to feel more love and also be more loving without expectation to others and to myself in how I nurtured my everyday life and supported my dreams. I set myself free to trust my life journey and stop trying to force something to happen that society wanted to have happened so that they would be more comfortable with me. This has made a powerfully positive difference to the quality of my life. But, and this is why I want to share today's episode, this is not to advocate for being single or to enjoy being single until something happens that society will applaud, but enter anything into that labeling. This is not about, celebrating being in a couple. This is not about celebrating whatever that definition is that we feel is being placed upon us to excel at, to fit ourselves into. This is not what this is about. I appreciate all of the various books and people and podcasts and shows that advocate for the beautiful life you can live when you're single, because I've experienced it. I know it. But my goal is not to be single or not be single. My goal, my objective, my intention, let's start there, is to live a fulfilling life grounded in contentment. And where it goes is where it goes. And I can't predict it and I don't know, but I'm going to engage. And I'm going to give with a whole and loving heart. I'm going to, because I know myself, I'm going to engage with integrity. And I'm going to savor those every days. And what crosses my path, I will engage with. What doesn't, I will not try to control or contrive. And that's where the magic happens. When we let ourselves be labeled in such a way, married, single, divorced, widowed, it helps society because they finally know where to put us in their boxes. And I say that generally as society. But for us, when we do that, it cements and prevents us from living fully and partaking in whatever life dance we choose to attend to for however long we choose to partake. In other words, if we solely and primarily identify with any of those, when that changes, whether we want it to or not, there's this attachment that's hard to let go. If it's something we want to relinquish, oh, that's great. If it's not something we want to relinquish, then we grieve that. It doesn't have to be our identity. It is our life experience. We can celebrate, we can relish every single one of those in our own way. But to be completely and entirely labeled by that, to adhere to it solely because that's what we are and that's what best defines us, you're more than that. You're more than your relationship status. Because the reasons for choosing the life we discover is most nourishing for our true selves will be unique to each of us and cannot be fully understood by the outside world based on defining our relationship status. Not even those close to us will understand entirely or absolutely. As I have shared in the past about my own journey, thus far, the forcing and trying to control anything to happen beyond what life's experience was offering me was my following bad advice and accepting poor guidance of how to live a fulfilling life. I know better now, and I am more loving and more at peace now as well. In the past, whether I was in a romantic relationship or out of one in my 20s and 30s, I'm speaking about, peace wasn't something I truly experienced compared to what I know true peace to be now. It was not the fault of the relationship I was in or the state of being single that caused this lack, but rather an ignorance of what love was that caused the discontent. If we are living a life of contentment, and based on the quotes shared by both Lucy Liu and Isabella Rossellini, I would argue both women who happen to be single by society's definition are living deeply contented lives. And if we are living a life of contentment, we dance with life, we savor it deeply, and in so doing, our life is full of love in many different forms. So today what I'd like to share with you are 4 different ways that we can understand what a life of love is and how we invite love into our life so that we can experience the serenity, whether we are single, whether we are coupled, whether we don't want to use any of those terms at all. We can feel and savor the serenity of our life just as it is. So today's title is a bit of a misnomer. All right. But I wanted to use that phrase from Isabella Rossellini, the serenity of being single, and how she's savoring it. We're going to talk about 4 ways to identify what love really is and how to invite it into our life. Let's dive right in. So the first one is that when we give kindness freely without expectation, that means we are more at peace in our own life. We are more in a place of contentment in our own life. And that is an act of true love. So kindness given freely without expectation. Let's look at this quote from Dr. Sylvia Bornstein, who wrote the book, Happiness is an Inside Job. Quote, "We are humans and have empathy built into our brain structure. When we are touched by what we encounter and when our minds are balanced, we respond with benevolence, with friendliness or compassion or appreciation. It is a beautiful truth about the potential of human beings." This quote underscores a check-in for us in many ways. So if there's a moment where you choose to do something unkind, now maybe not intentionally, not maliciously, but in reflection you realize, oh, that was not kind. You might want to use that as a checkpoint. Okay, what is off balance in my life? Why was I unable to be kind in that moment? Because as she speaks to, we are hardwired to be benevolent, to be kind. When we are not, it's because something is causing us pain. It's because something is not healed. There's so many different things that could be going on. And it's only through awareness that we can heal that. So when we are at peace with ourselves and we know our own mind and how to care for it well and strengthen our awareness through mindfulness practices, we no longer hold back our natural inclination to be kind out of fear of being hurt or taken advantage of. This also includes being kind to ourselves. And because we are engaging freely, we want nothing in return whenever we extend kindness. We give because we know what we can healthily give. We don't give beyond our means. We don't give beyond our energy source. We know our boundaries. We know why we are giving, and it comes from a place of being loving. So that is one way that true love is exhibited in our life. And that flip it on its head when someone else is being kind to you. That's an example of love. That is one avenue of how our lives are filled with an abundance of love. Number two, by building a strong root system. And I put root system in quotes just so we can understand what that means. But this is from Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh and his book, How to Love. And he shares, quote, "The roots of lasting relationships are mindfulness, deep listening, and loving speech, and a strong community to support you," end quote. Whether in our personal life with friends, family, and community, or in our romantic partnership, we often only realize how strong our root system is, thus how true the love is, when a strong emotional upheaval or catastrophic event happens. But we can never know if or when or what that will be. So we build that root system because it shows us how and with whom to build connections with, or to continue to build connections with. As we build our root system of love, we discover truths about the people we engage with. It is during this journey of building the root system that we, being the mindful and aware person that we are, who respects ourselves and our boundaries of what we need, that we choose to either continue to build relationships with certain people or to step back and open our lives up in a different direction or for different connections. In other words, along the way of building our root system, we start to really see people because we have this awareness about us. We are not, don't have rose-colored glasses on. We are not, blindly just going along because they fit a box, whatever it might be. And so we make changes as we go. This is a dynamic building of the root system. Studies have shown, and we shared this in episode 254, that in America, singles tend to have a stronger social web of connection than those who are married. Due to a variety of factors, responsibilities, and types of support structures, such as or lack thereof, when it comes to childcare and transportation, especially for married people with young children, those who are single tend to invest in a vast array of relationships and continue to invest in them rather than drill down on just one or two different relationships that hold the bulk of the weight for social connection. This is to the benefit of singletons, but it need not be only for those who aren't traditionally married or partnered. As was shared in another episode, episode 274, and I've included all of the links to these episodes on the show notes, about the importance of friendship, quality friendship is vital to a quality life regardless of one's relationship status as defined by tax filing descriptions. And I say that last one because you file as your relationship status is in America. If you want to get to know what a country values, look at their tax code and look at their tax law. That will tell you what they value. Doesn't mean that has to be what you value, but it's something to keep in mind as well. It's not directly related to our conversation, but it definitely plays a big role in influencing our thinking. But it definitely can influence how we feel at peace or not at peace with the life decisions we make. Because if the culture itself doesn't value or reward, in the case monetarily, like deductions and whatnot for a particular life choice or subsidies or whatnot, then we may think, oh, this isn't of value. It may be unconscious, but it's something to be aware of. So this building of the root system, it is not something that happens overnight. It takes time, but it requires consciousness, mindfulness, courage, vulnerability. And there will likely and definitely, I would say, be changes along the way. But the key here is that regardless of your relationship status, build that strong root system. Build that strong root system because you will feel the benefits in the now. And when those difficult times hit, That's when you'll also feel them as well, not only for yourself, but when someone else goes through it and you're part of their root system, you're there helping them too in your way that you can. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in a romantic partnership with them. Okay, so that's number two. Before I get to the last two, I would like to introduce you to today's sponsor. I'll be right back. There are so many language learning resources available these days, whether in person, online, or through an app. But I want to introduce you to something truly distinctive: News in Slow French, an online program that offers a boutique approach tailored for the sophisticated mind. This exceptional experience is also available in Spanish, Italian, and German. News in Slow French requires from the listener a curiosity for intelligent conversations and topics, and it's produced by an international team of journalists and linguists. With interesting and provocative opinions and debates, you can join small group discussions that are as fun and rewarding as private lessons. And programs are crafted for every level, featuring rich and engaging discussions at just the right pace, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced learner. Picture this: you're immersed in a conversation about culture, history, or current events, and suddenly you realize you're following along in the foreign language you're trying to learn. Many people have reported a sense of virtual immersion because it doesn't feel like studying at all. News in Slow French has over a decade of experience and refinement, as they've been producing these podcasts for more than 15 years, perfecting their approach. Mentioned by the New York Times, the Washington Post, and The Economist, and used by college students, hobby learners, politicians, and even U.S. presidential candidates, News in Slow French is the resource to improve your language learning skills. Start your free trial at newsinslowfrench.com or newsinslowspanish.com or Italian or German today. Your next, "Oh my goodness, I did it, I got it, I understood it, I've got this language thing down," is just a podcast away. The Simple Sophisticate is also sponsored by Indeed. So, as a solo entrepreneur, there are times when I have different projects, behind the scenes work to be done on the blog, on the website, that I do not know how to do. But I do need someone I can trust, and I need it to be done fairly quickly. That's where Indeed has stepped in, and I have been able to find that talent, find it quickly, and get it done sufficiently, which has brought me peace of mind. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. With Sponsored Jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored job posts directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed Sponsored Jobs, there are no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So as a Simple Sophisticate listener, there's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And as a listener of this show, you'll get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/simple. So go to Indeed.com/simple right now and support this show by saying you heard about Indeed on the Simple Sophisticate podcast. That's Indeed.com/simple. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Welcome back. So let's dive into the final two ways we can be loving and how to invite more love, true love, into our life. Being loving starts with healing and loving ourselves first. Quote from Thich Nhat Hanh: "You can't offer happiness until you have it for yourself. So build a home inside by accepting yourself and learning to love and heal yourself." End quote. The essence of loving kindness is being able to offer happiness. But if we are attempting to offer love to another without loving ourselves, then our ability to be truly loving cannot happen. And so then the question must be asked, how can I be loving to myself? And I can't answer that question concretely for you. because you are a unique individual, and anyone who tells you specifically how to be loving to yourself is misguided in doing so, for only you will know what you need to feel nourished. You can learn and be inspired by general guidance and concepts, absolutely. But what is specifically going to heal you is unique to what you learn about yourself and the journey you've been on and are on. Just as society often tells us we must be coupled to be whole, that is misguided, for we already are whole, all on our own. And what I might need in my life to feel nourished may require me not to be compatible with another particular individual who I do love. And so, therefore, a romantic partnership with that person may not be possible. But that doesn't mean I cannot have a platonic relationship with them and love and support them and they me in a different way that is truly loving to both them and myself. So, when we start with healing ourselves and being loving to ourselves and knowing how to do that well and truly, then we do know how to give it, and we know what love isn't as well. I think that's a beautiful thing here. Once we truly know what love is, we can easily recognize it when anything that's being purported to be love comes at us and we're like, no, sorry, that's not love. I'm going to distance myself. It depends on the relationship. You may call it out or you might just step away. So that's number 3. Being love starts with healing and loving yourself first. And lastly, when we find our dharma and live it, that is where we start to open the door to real love being experienced as well as given. And this is something that is at the core of how to live a contented life, a life of contentment. I want to share with you again a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. He shares, "Use your talent to find ways to bring happiness to yourself and others. The happiness that arises from meditation is not the same as the feeling that comes from the pursuit of pleasure seeking. Meditative joy has the capacity to nourish our mindfulness, understanding, and love. Live in a way that encourages deep happiness in yourself and in others." End quote. So throughout the Contentment Masterclass, the concept of Dharma is taught, explored, and shown how to be maintained in your individual unique life. But here's a quick overview in case you're wondering what Dharma is. It is what we can uniquely give with our innate talents and passion to the world that both constructively benefits the world while simultaneously nourishing and energizing us. It takes time to figure out what our Dharma is, and each person's road to discovering it will be unique to them based on when their consciousness awakes or if it awakens at all. But when we discover our Dharma and begin to live it each day, we quickly realize that love is not a narrow construct that often is portrayed in contemporary media. About 1.5 years ago, I shared a detailed post about what love really is, as taught by Jay Shetty. And as he points out, often the definition of love based on what society describes as love, romantic love, is what many people need to be engaged with, need to be part of in order to discover their true selves and the potential within them. It helps them to unearth it because they would never have been motivated to change, to grow otherwise, to then discover their Dharma, to discover their true selves and discover how to be truly loving. But it is not the only way that we can discover it. Some people are motivated in their own way, self-driven, self-motivated to discover it. And so therefore the love partnership, that romantic partnership, is not necessary. It can still be chosen, but it is not necessary to inspire or motivate us to discover our true self and thus our Dharma. Rather, what he points out is romantic love is often the prompt that wakes us up to change and discover the vast awesomeness of a truly fulfilling and love-filled life, but it need not be the only way. I've included a link to that post, really explored his 8 rules of love, and I really appreciated his awareness with regards to that. Um, yeah, I'll let you explore that if that speaks to you. That was episode 360 that we discussed that. So that's the fourth way that we open ourselves up to let love in and to also understand what real love or true love is. Each person's life journey will be unique, but we so often are encouraged to travel life in the same manner, at the same speed, on the same route, in the same direction, as well as with the same company or the same travel companions as everyone else, that we miss the beautiful scenery and experiences and essentially the opportunities that can be a part of our book of life if only we would have tuned in to our inner compass. I encourage you today to choose to engage with life right now without futurizing it, as Lucy Liu described it. There is serenity to be savored in whatever state of relationship you are in. If we do this, if we live fully in the present moment and acknowledge where we can grow and what skills we can learn by being truly loving, not only will we discover our Dharma, which will be deeply fulfilling for all of our days that we are engaged with it, but we will also cross the paths of people that prompt love to be felt and exchanged truly and sincerely in all its many different forms. I hope today's episode spoke to you, encouraged you to trust your life journey a bit more, trust yourself a bit more, find that courage that I know you have in you to rest easy. Your inner compass has been speaking to you. And where you find peace may not be where everyone else finds peace. And that's okay. And if it is, it happens to be, that's great too. We want more people to be at peace. Then the world will experience peace. May you have a wonderful month, year, and each day along the way full of savoring the serenity of being single, or in other words, being fully alive in your everyday life. You can find the show notes for today's episode on the blog at thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 397. And I'll be back with this episode's Petite Plaisir. Welcome back. So one of the reasons I chose the book that I chose today has to do a little bit with the necessity for all of us to first heal ourselves, be loving to ourselves in order to let love in order to know what real love is and to be truly loving to others. Because this is part of the journey of what this book speaks about. So this book is titled The Artist's Joy, A Guide to Getting Unstuck, Embracing Imperfection, and Loving Your Creative Life by Meredith Hite Estevez. And she is a coach primarily working with musicians. Specifically, she is an oboist herself who went to Juilliard and studied at the Yale School of Music. But she herself teaches others how to either get out of a block that they're running up against, how to find their musical voice again through their instrument, whatever it might be. But it's not just for musicians, and it's not just for the traditional definition of a creative person. And I feel, as someone reading this, looking at it through different lenses, as a human being, just in general, trying to figure out life and its journey, as well as a writer, but someone who tries to keep an open mind, at the same time knows I have so much to learn, I found this to be reassuring that we all go through ebbs and flows, wanings and waxings of our life, of knowing, of trusting, of having courage or being discouraged, and how to move through them to continue to be dynamic in our life journey. So what I'd like to do is share with you a few passages. If you are trying to heal yourself in any way, one of the sections that she has is coming home to yourself. And she speaks about how just the basic simplicity of taking care of our bodies through the food we eat, through the exercise we take on a regular basis, That is when change can slowly occur that we want when we do this with intentionality. And that any kind of a creativity that we engage in can be a spiritual practice. And that these seeds of creativity hold within them the opportunity for deep spiritual connection and ultimately healing. When we seek answers to questions about the nature of inspiration, courage, and our innate worthiness, we begin to see that sustainable joy is found when we harmonize what is within and beyond us to craft a sustainable artistic practice that feeds our soul. Your life is a creative practice. It is a book, it is a song, it is however you want to make turn into an analogy, turn into a metaphor. It is a piece of art. It is your masterpiece. Whether it is working in the math department or the art department. It is a work of art because you are the artist. And there has never been anyone quite like you. And every year or every turn of the globe, we are in a different time. And so you're dealing with different inspirations, different events, things like that. So that's one thing to keep in mind here. If you're trying to heal yourself, often diving into creativity in one way or other that speaks to you can be very therapeutic and revealing of what you need and how to take care of yourself. Here are a few other things that she spoke about. This one I really appreciated immensely because so often we hear about the SMART approach to goals, SMART, and she came up with a different idea. And I think this would help a lot of people, not just people that are in the creative arts, the traditional creative arts. She came up with CRAFT, CRAFT. And the reason she did this is so that it gives your journey toward whatever it is you've created an intention to reach breath, space, freedom to wiggle. She writes, it's important to distinguish between the two, goals and dreams, because we must leave space in the creative process to be led, to discover, and most importantly, to resist the temptation that so many of us have to equate our achievements with our value as a person. She speaks about how often with SMART goals we put down, I will win this award, I will get this particular achievement, which is completely with regards to who will bestow it upon us. It's not our choice as to whether or not we get it. We may have done the work that will validate us earning that award, but we still may not get it. We may not win that Oscar or that Grammy, whatever it might be, but you still may have done an amazing job. It's just so subjective. So she talks about craft as being this focus about what you can control and also giving yourself some space, some breathing room. And so the acronym stands for create process, not product, recruit the help you need, align work with your values, frame the work with constraints that enable, and twist and turn but keep stepping forward. Craft, CRAFT. And the last one is very important because as she talks about later in the book, we're going to have to do things that require courage regularly in order to grow, is something we talked about in Monday's motivational post. In order to grow, we have to not just face our fears, but use our fears as guidance, but don't toss them away or run away from them. We're going to have to stretch ourselves by being uncomfortable. She writes in the chapter of the Ode to Courage that when we run up against discouragement, maybe something's not working the way we want, maybe we don't think we're ever going to learn that particular skill to do whatever it is we want, to achieve what we want, we need to keep doing the work. The devotion needs to be there rather than the discipline. Yeah, you need discipline. You may say it needs to be there because you're keeping at it, but you have to want to be there, to love being there, even through the headaches, knowing that the headaches are necessary to grow. And when you keep showing up and when you continue to devote yourself, you are putting money in the bank, essentially. She writes, keep doing the work anyway. It fills the courage bank account you will desperately need to pull from later when you wonder if you're ready. The work you do out of devotion each morning. So maybe you have, your writing ritual, your whatever that ritual is that you do that's part of what you as part of the growth journey, the benefits may not show up today or even tomorrow. It may be even years from now when you get the call, start the business, or do the scary thing that feels like taking a leap of faith. The work you did is the net that will catch you. So all that preparation you have been doing, not knowing when the opportunity would arise, the muscles, the ability to do it without thinking about it because you've been practicing that skill for so long, all of a sudden, you're able to do it. I think about that often when I stepped away from teaching. I was building up the muscle to trust myself in the previous 10 years or 12 years, actually, of writing every single day, of sincerely sharing and connecting and exploring and learning. And so when I made that leap and bet on myself, it was not easy. It was scary. And I've talked about this in detail in A Cup Moments, as well as in the book, my third book. But the courage muscle was built up through all those previous 12 years of showing up. That was devotion. I was loving what I was doing. I was doing it every single day. I didn't know where it was leading me, but I trusted the journey. So she talks about that because this courage bank is real. And the work you do regularly to build up that courage bank will give you the wisdom and strength that you cannot see yet. So I like I said, if you're looking for reminder to trust your journey and to be comfortable with zigging and zagging, as we talked about the twists and turns with regards to the craft method of reaching your goals, the twists and turns are what really, that's where the magic is. That's where you find things unexpected. She also talks about energy management. Life as an artist is the work of energy management, she writes. We need unscheduled time to explore, to play, to dream, and to tinker. The purpose of the schedule should be to help us get things done while protecting our energy maker at all costs. So this is where making sure that you prioritize room to rest in a form that's constructive, to not fill every moment so that you can heal, so that you can take time to get to know yourself, so you can be rested. There's so many different crossovers here to any kind of life that we live, even if it's not traditionally a creative life. I highly recommend this book. It's beautifully written, a lot of great analogies. She shares a lot of analogies specifically from her coaching work that I think are very applicable, whether you're a musician or not. I'm definitely not a musician. So. Anyway, The Artist's Joy by Meredith Height Estevez. I hope you've enjoyed this episode's Petit Plaisir, where each episode ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each episode where I'll recommend a book, a film, a show, a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. I want to thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful start to this brand new month that is February. And I'll be back on the 19th, Wednesday, the 19th of February, with a brand new episode, episode 398. Until then, I'll see you on the blog. Bonjour. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, visit the blog, The Simply Luxurious Life, with the shortened URL tsll.co or thesimplyluxuriouslife.com. For more in-depth exploration of how to cultivate your own unique, simply luxurious life, pick up my new book, which became both a bestseller and #1 new release in France Travel, The Road to Le Papillon, Daily Meditations on True Contentment. Available in all 4 formats for your preferred reading or listening. My first book, titled Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, and my second book, Living the Simply Luxurious Life, are also available in each of the 4 formats. Readers can now join the more intimate The Simply Luxurious Life international community by becoming members of the blog, which offers the benefits of ad-free reading site-wide, unlimited access and exclusive access to content on the blog, such as the monthly A Couple Moments with Shannon video chat, tours of my home Le Papillon, the monthly What Made Me Smile post, and monthly Ponderings post, as well as the exclusive opportunity to enter all of the giveaways during the annual French and British weeks. To stay caught up on all things Simply Luxurious, the podcast, blog post, the cooking show, and receive exclusive news, as well as an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart each new month, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Live's free monthly newsletter, arriving on the last day of each month in your inbox. There is also a weekly newsletter, which is also free, and arrives each Friday to keep you caught up on the recent weekly posts on the blog. Enjoy with a hot cuppa or cup of morning coffee, and stay in the know about all things Simply Luxurious. Look for 2 new episodes of this podcast on the first and third Wednesday of each month. And until next time, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Thank you for tuning in. Bonne journée.